Jimin and Jungkook are enemies. They always fight about everything, even though Jungkook always spanks Jimin and forcefully kisses him to annoy him. But he don't care, because Jimin already used to him doing those things. Jungkook was in his yard, and when he saw Jimin in theirs, he jumped over the fence to spank Jimin hard, hoping to anger him. However, Jimin just glared at him with hatred. Jungkook stayed close, not bothering Jimin further. He leaned in and kissed Jimin forcefully, biting his lip. This time, Jimin pushed him away and snapped, "Idiot, Jimin, don't do that again. Or next time I'll hit you back, idiot." Jungkook smirked. "Well, I don't care." Jungkook chuckled at Jimin's threat, finding it amusing rather than frightening. He stepped closer, invading Jimin's personal space. "Oh, really? I'd like to see you try, Jimin." His voice was low and teasing, a challenge in his eyes. Jungkook reached out to grab Jimin's wrist, pulling him closer. "Come on, hit me if you dare. I'm right here." Jimin's eyes flashed with anger and frustration. He tried to yank his wrist free from Jungkook's grasp, but the taller man held firm. "Let go of me, idiot," Jimin snapped, his face inches from Jungkook's. Jungkook smirked, unfazed by Jimin's outburst. He tightened his hold on Jimin's wrist and used his free hand to cup the smaller man's cheek possessively. "Make me," he murmured, leaning in until their lips were a breath apart. "I dare you." His thumb brushed lightly over Jimin's bottom lip, a teasing caress. Jimin's heart raced as Jungkook invaded his space, his touch sending shivers down Jimin's spine. Despite his anger, he glared up at the taller man, hating how easily Jungkook could rile him up. "You're really asking for it," Jimin muttered, his voice barely audible. Jungkook chuckled low in his throat, the sound vibrating against Jimin's lips. "Prove it then," he whispered, his eyes locked onto Jimin's. "Show me what you've got." The tension between them was palpable, the air thick with unspoken challenges and underlying desires. Jimin knew he should push Jungkook away, should tell him off for good this time. Jimin hesitated for a moment, his resolve weakening under Jungkook's intense gaze. He could feel the heat radiating off the taller man's body, could smell the faint scent of his cologne. It was distracting, making it harder for Jimin to remember why he should be angry. But then he remembered the countless times Jungkook had annoyed him, had pushed his buttons just to get a reaction. The frustration came rushing back, and Jimin made his decision. With a sudden burst of strength, he twisted out of Jungkook's grasp and shoved him backwards. Jungkook stumbled, but managed to catch himself, looking surprised by Jimin's sudden move. Before Jungkook could react, Jimin charged forward and swung his fist at the taller man's face. His punch connected with Jungkook's jaw with a satisfying crack, snapping the idiot's head to the side. Jungkook staggered back, clearly stunned by the unexpected blow. He touched his jaw gingerly, looking at Jimin with a mix of shock and admiration. "F***CK," Jungkook muttered, shaking his head slightly. "You actually did it." He rubbed his jaw, wincing slightly at the pain, but then a slow smirk spread across his face. "Not bad, Jimin. I didn't think you had it in you." Jimin stood there panting, his heart racing from the adrenaline of finally standing up to Jungkook. He felt a mix of pride and fear, wondering what Jungkook would do next. But instead of retaliating, Jungkook started laughing, It was a deep, genuine laugh that seemed to surprise even himself. Damn, I needed that, he said, still chuckling. You're full of surprises, Jimin. Jimin blinked, caught off guard by Jungkook's reaction. He wasn't sure what to make of it. Was Jungkook mocking him? Jimin blinked, caught off guard by Jungkook's reaction. He wasn't sure what to make of it. Was Jungkook mocking him? Or was he genuinely amused and impressed? Jimin's hand still throbbed from the punch, a reminder of the tension between them. Jungkook's laughter died down, but the smirk remained on his face as he looked at Jimin. You know, I've been wanting to see that side of you for a while now, he said, his voice low and almost affectionate. It's kind of hot. Jimin felt his cheeks heat up at Jungkook's words, a mix of embarrassment and something else he couldn't quite identify. He crossed his arms over his chest, trying to maintain his tough facade. Shut up, he muttered, looking away. But Jungkook wasn't done teasing him yet. He stepped closer, invading Jimin's personal space once again. Jungkook stepped closer, invading Jimin's personal space once again. Come on, don't stop now, he murmured, his breath ghosting over Jimin's ear. I know there's more where that came from. Jimin felt his heart skip a beat at the closeness. Jungkook's warm breath sending shivers down his spine. He tried to ignore the fluttering in his stomach and focus on his anger instead. Back off, Jimin snapped, pushing against Jungkook's chest. But the taller man didn't budge, his muscular frame unyielding under Jimin's hands. Instead, Jungkook leaned in even closer, his lips brushing against Jimin's ear as he spoke. Make me, he whispered, his voice low and challenging. Jimin swallowed hard, trying to ignore the way Jungkook's proximity was affecting him. Jimin's heart raced as Jungkook leaned in closer, his lips brushing against Jimin's ear. The taller man's warm breath sent shivers down Jimin's spine, and he could feel the heat radiating off Jungkook's body. Despite his best efforts, Jimin found himself leaning into the touch, craving more of Jungkook's attention. But then reality came crashing back, and Jimin remembered the countless times Jungkook had annoyed him, had pushed his buttons just to get a reaction. The frustration returned, mixing with the lingering desire. With a sudden burst of strength, Jimin grabbed Jungkook's shoulders and spun them around, reversing their positions. He slammed Jungkook against the nearest wall, pinning him there with his body. Jungkook looked surprised for a moment, but then a smirk spread across his face. Now that's what I'm talking about, he murmured, his eyes darkening with interest. Jimin glared at him, trying to ignore the way their bodies pressed together. Shut up, he snapped. His hands gripped Jungkook's shoulders tightly, holding him in place. Jimin's heart pounded in his chest, a mix of anger and something else he refused to acknowledge. Jungkook's smirk only widened at Jimin's outburst. He leaned in closer, his lips brushing against Jimin's jawline. Or what? He murmured, his voice low and teasing. Jimin felt a shudder run through him at the contact. Jungkook's breath hot against his skin. He tightened his grip on the taller man's shoulders, digging his fingers in slightly. I'll, Jimin trailed off, suddenly finding it hard to think straight with Jungkook. So close. Jungkook chuckled softly, the sound vibrating against Jimin's jaw. You'll what? He prompted, his hands coming up to rest on Jimin's hips. He squeezed gently, pulling the smaller man even closer. Jimin gasped at the sudden contact, feeling Jungkook's strong hands on his hips. He could feel the heat of Jungkook's palms through his clothes, branding him even through the fabric. Jimin's breath hitched, his mind struggling to focus on anything other than the feeling of Jungkook's touch. "You're playing with fire," Jimin warned, his voice barely above a whisper. But even as he said it, he made no move to pull away. Instead, he found himself leaning into Jungkook's touch, craving more. Jungkook smirked, his fingers digging into Jimin's hips possessively. "Maybe I like getting burned,"